So who makes the penalty calls anyway? Let's get into it. Hello everyone and welcome to Oakman on Racing. This week we're going to look at who is it that actually makes the calls on track. Now the calls themselves are triggered obviously by somebody seeing an infraction. Whether it's a basic driving infraction or, somebody does something unsportsmanlike, it can be any number of things. But as soon as somebody sees it, who is it that actually makes the call? Well, generally speaking, it's going to be the race director. The race director is in charge of all the activities that happen on track, within reason, of course, and they're the one who's ultimately responsible for making a call. Now, if you have a steward, the steward is going to be responsible for not only recording the incident that happened and the call that's made, but ensuring that the penalty actually fits with the guidelines and the precedents set. In the case of clubs, usually it's going to be the race director who gets that job as well. For example, say you have a lane violation. So the race director is going to call lane violation, it's going to go up to race control is going to record it. If there's a steward, the steward is going to record it. And then the race director will generally call out what the penalty is. Depending on the series, it might be 3 seconds, could be 3 positions. It just sort of depends on where you're working. The steward is going to ensure that the call is correct, 3 seconds, 3 positions, whatever it happens to be, ensures that it gets recorded, and that it shows up on the results. The race director is one person, and they're not going to be able to see everything on the racetrack. So is anybody else able to make calls? Well, obviously, off the racetrack, you're going to have somebody like the tech director or the tech team. They can typically make a call themselves based on what they find. If there's some kind of engine violation or, the rear axle is too wide, the sidebars are in too far, whatever it happens to be. The tech director can call directly to race control and call out a penalty. If there's a steward, again, the steward will ensure that the call that's being made, whatever the penalty is, fits and that it's on the sheet as well. In the absence of a steward, usually the race director is not going to get involved with it, even though the race director would be taking on the stewarding position. I actually ran into this years ago where I was trying to be involved in all the tech calls to ensure that they are accurate, as well as, of course, running the racetrack, and it just became too much. And honestly, the tech director is going to know the tech rules better than a race director is. It's 2 different sides of the rule book. It's 2 different rule books. And you let the experts kind of do their thing. If there's some sort of conflict or they want advice or they're not sure what the penalty is supposed to be and they don't want to look it up or there's some conflict, then of course the race director as the steward is going to have to get involved. Usually you can let the tech director do their thing. They know what they're doing. That's why they have that job. There are a couple of positions where making calls is delegated, such as the grid marshal and the scale marshal. The grid marshal has the autonomy to make calls for people who ignore their instructions, whether it's they go out on track when they've been told not to, or they don't go on track under a controlled session when they are told to, like qualifying. They can also make calls if somebody's working on their cart on grid, they've brought tools in, or they're running their engine too early. They have that responsibility. You also have the scale marshal. Scale marshal is going to call directly up to race control if there's some kind of violation in the weight, somebody's underweight. They can also call if somebody touches their nose cone, if there's pushback bumpers, or if somebody interacts with somebody on the other side of the fence and passes something over. When it comes to the racetrack itself, technically anybody on track can make a call. Now you can have corner marshals make calls, however you have to realize that their focus has to be their corner. They have a job to do, and it's an incredibly important one. It's also important to recognize that most corner marshals are not going to have the kind of understanding of the rule book that you're going to need. If you have a corner marshal that's well experienced and understands the rules, they can certainly make a call, but the ultimate responsibility on whether or not a driver has earned that penalty has to go through the race director. The starter is in a really good position to make starting penalty calls. Whether it's a jump start or a lane violation, they have a really good view of it. They also have a really good view of blocking on their straightaway. They're up high, they can see down, they're usually out hanging over the track a little bit. They're in a really good position for that. During the race, they can make calls as well, but their job takes precedent over anything else. They have to give out the flags whenever possible, as accurately as possible. So watching packs on the track is something that's going to be interrupted throughout the race. Timing scoring is going to be far too busy. You might be able to get them to watch here and there, but their job is taking care of timing scoring, recording things. It's not their job to be making calls on the track. And no matter how gung ho and involved a timing scoring person wants to be, they need to focus on their job. As a race director, you really don't want to be relying on them because you're putting a lot of extra work on them. If you're in a series that has assistants, of course, that's exactly what their job is. It's to help the race director make calls throughout the day. It can be assistant race directors, it can be competition directors, it can be any official really who's available to watch the races during the day. The real question is, should you take calls from other people on track? Really, it comes down to somebody who is trusted, somebody who has experience and understands at least the specific set of rules that you're giving them to watch over. It doesn't matter if it's grid marshal, scale marshal, corner marshal, starter, assistants. They have to understand what it is that they're making a call on if you're going to trust them to make a call. But it's your responsibility to choose whether or not the driver has earned that penalty based on somebody else's call. Really, what you need to do as the race director is be the leader and insulate your people as much as possible. Remember, I said the grid marshal and the scale marshals can make calls, but they shouldn't be dealing with conflict mediation. If there's some sort of scuffle going on, an argument or anything like that, it should be clear to your marshals that they need to call you as the race director over to try and deal with it. Don't be afraid to call for assistance yourself. You're not a boxing referee, so don't get in the middle of physical confrontations. Don't be afraid to call the police the moment somebody starts getting physical, and deal with it that way. So if one of your team makes a call, make it clear that you are the person as the race director that accepted the call and applied the penalty. Be a leader. Support your people, use them as best you can, make them feel like they're supported, and make everybody feel like they're respected. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below if there's something that you want me to talk about, you think there's something I missed, you want me to get into more detail about things. And as always, I will see you at the track.